Hello, I'm Natalie from the Early Years Alliance, and today I'm here to talk to you about understanding and managing behaviours in young children. I'm going to talk to you about some of the challenges that you might face with your children from around the ages 2 up until when they start school, and I'm going to share with you some tips and advice for how you can support your child and manage those tricky behaviours at home. From around the age of 2, children typically start to assert their independence and really start to express a little bit more their wants, thoughts and needs. And this can be quite challenging because they can really get fixed in a mindset of the power and control that they feel that they need to have in their day. Mine can be a very powerful word at this age, and they can really start to push back a little bit on that control that adults may try to impose on them. And young children are not naturally patient or tolerant. They learn these skills from the attitudes and responses of the adults around them. So if you imagine how a child feels when they are unable to do something or they are told no throughout their day many times, just to think about how that might feel. And a lot of those situations, we are saying no because we are keeping that child safe and we are imposing those important boundaries. But sometimes the times that we say no might not be entirely necessary, and there might be other ways that we can allow the child to have a little bit more choice, a little bit more freedom, so that actually when it needs to be a no, your child will understand that and they'll perhaps be a little bit more willing to be on board and follow that request that you make of them. So children feel very valued and they realise that they can have an effect on the world, so they develop their sense of agency when we give them some limited choices. So when we give them that little tiny bit of that freedom in the day to make a choice for themselves, and that can be quite simple. We could give the child some choices around things like getting dressed in the morning. So rather than choosing your child's entire outfit for the day, perhaps you could give them a choice in there somewhere. So ask them if they would like to wear the blue t-shirt or the red t-shirt today. You're choosing the item of clothing because it's weather and activity appropriate for what you're going to be doing that day. But you're giving your child that little bit of a choice there, something that they can decide for themselves. Likewise, we can give them some choices around meal times. So you could maybe ask your child, would you like peas or beans with your dinner this evening? Would you like your cucumber cut into sticks or circles today? We're still ultimately choosing what they're eating there. We're just giving them that little bit of choice to make. It's not going to make a huge impact. Something like the way that you prepare the food, it's probably not even going to take you any longer to do it in a different way, but your child will get that feeling that they're having an impact on their world around them. They're getting that sense of agency and they're going to feel really valued. And actually, by giving them more yeses in the day, giving them a little bit of choice for themselves, actually, then when we need to make that choice for them, like this is the time you need to get into the car and we need to put your seatbelt on because now it's time to go, or you need to hold my hand now whilst we cross the street. When it's important because it's about safety or because your day and your routine is set that way and they don't have that choice, they're more likely to be a little bit on board with that if they've had a few more opportunities in the day to make those small choices for themselves and for them to hear yes a little bit more. We can also give them some activities to redirect some of that behaviour that sometimes we're saying no to, thinking, is there a way that we can actually say yes to that? So something a lot of particularly younger toddlers but also older children will do is things like empty the tissue box or empty the baby wipe packet, because they just find that quite satisfying to do that. And of course we're going to say no to that because we don't want to waste that resource. But doing something like saving a wipe packet and filling it with foil scarves or bits of fabric or something that you are happy for your child to remove from that packet, they're going to get that same sensation. They're going to feel that satisfaction of it being a yes to something that they really want to do. And they'll understand that it's not always a yes, but it's nice to give them more yeses in a day than no's if we can. So that's sort of thinking about something that you have to say no to. Is there a way that you can provide your child with an opportunity in that day for that to then be a yes. Lots of children like emptying the kitchen cupboards, and of course we have to say no to that quite a lot of the time, because we can have things that are unsafe for them. We can have sharp objects, fragile objects, or cleaning products in there. So we're going to keep some of those cupboards locked, and we're going to keep things out of reach. But is there a way that you could have a cupboard that you're quite happy for your child to empty? Maybe it's got all of your plastic Tupperware or unbreakable utensils in there, and whilst you're cooking dinner, they can have free rein to empty that cupboard, because that is a yes opportunity. Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can do that thing that you are really desperate to do, but no, you can't do this one. So we're giving them some yeses to balance out those no's that as parents and carers we have to give throughout the day. Another area that may present as tricky or challenging in terms of managing your child's behaviour can be around their communication. So young children don't always have the vocabulary or the understanding to communicate their feelings and their point of view. And as a result, they often then express those through behaviours. And tantrums, or meltdowns as you might call them, are a normal part of child development. And although not all children will have them, they often do. And they occur as a result of a child's frustration in trying to control the world around them and failing to do so. So perhaps there's something that they want to do and they're not able to do that. Maybe it's something you're allowing them to do, but they're just not physically or developmentally ready to do that thing, and they find that extremely frustrating. Or they're just a little bit overwhelmed in that moment and they can't quite make sense of what's going on around them, and they don't have the language to communicate that, so they do it in a way that they can. They do that through their behaviour, and sometimes that can be quite physical. What we need to do as the adults in that situation is to bring that calm. We need to react with calm to calm the situation down. We don't want that fighting fire with fire situation. We're there as the reasoned adult who is in control of their emotions to calm that situation down for the child who simply isn't in control of their emotions. And it can be really tricky for a child to be able to recognise actually and understand what it is that they are feeling. And if they can't understand what they're feeling, then they're going to find it really difficult to respond appropriately to those emotions. So their emotional literacy, their understanding of their emotions. And as they get more emotionally literate, as they understand those feelings more, then they are definitely going to be more able to manage and control the behaviour that comes with those feelings. And the wide range of feelings can be very confusing for young children. So 2-year-olds can generally recognise basic emotions. So they will recognise happy and sad. They will understand that feeling in themselves, and they'll be able to recognise that feeling in other people. But they may be confused between emotions like fear and anger, because actually they can look really similar, can't they, in terms of that outward behaviour that goes with those feelings. By around the age of 4, children start to learn that it's possible to feel mixed emotions, and that others may feel differently about something that's the same. So they start to learn that other people may not feel the way that they feel about something. But it's not until that point. So it's about managing those expectations of what your child is actually able and capable of doing in terms of their emotions at the age and stage that they are at. Talking with children about their feelings and behaviour can really support that. So waiting until that moment of calm and then talking to them about those emotions can support them to regulate. So I'm just going to share with you a couple of tips of how we might be able to do that. So I've got here my calm down bottle. So in there I've got some coloured water and I've got some vegetable oil. So I've just got water that I've put a bit of food colouring in, vegetable oil on top, and I've put some little glittery stars in there. You could use a bit of sand in there, you could use some sequins, something that's going to fall and settle in the water, that's got a little tiny bit of weight to it compared to the liquids we've got in there. And what we're going to do is shake it up. So when your child is on that tip of that tantrum, or you can just see that they're really starting to bubble up and lose control, they're really struggling in that moment, rather than giving them a time out, which would perhaps typically be to put them away from the situation by themselves and ask them to think about those feelings, or just wait there until you've calmed down. a lot of the time children just aren't going to be capable of doing that in that moment. They're going to need some help with that. So if we give them a calming bottle and ask them to sit down and wait with their calming bottle and watch it until all of the stars have settled to the bottom, that focus that's going to give them, that moment of calm that they are going to get from that, is going to allow them that bit of time that they need, and perhaps that bit of time that you need as the adult. Sometimes we need that moment as well, just to gather our thoughts, do a few deep breaths, and just make sure that we are bringing that calm to the situation. We might need that little bit of space for them just to have their moment and you to have your moment before you address that situation. And you can see that already just in that time that I was talking then, it started to separate, and the stars are going to start to fall down to the bottom. How much you shake it is how long it will take for it to settle. So the more you shake it, the longer it will take to settle. And you can judge that. So for, a 2-year-old, I wouldn't shake this very much at all, because they're not going to be able to sit still and watch this for quite as long. But it's still just going to give them that little bit, and we're sort of training them to have that moment of calm. For an older child, they might be able to do 2 or 3 minutes of just waiting calmly, watching the stars. You see they're starting to drop down now to the bottom. So it just gives them that little bit of time, but it's time in. They're not excluded from the situation. They're not left to deal with it by themselves. We've brought them in and we're giving them that little bit of time just to calm down. And once they've calmed down, that is when those crucial conversations can happen. So that's when we can start to talk to them about how they are feeling. And sometimes we can use tools to help us with that. So you can get printed emotions cards that you can buy, or you can order online, or you can just kind of find images that you can screenshot. So I've just got some faces on there that I would just have on my device, that we might just sit and talk about some of those feelings. We might just say, which one do you think you were feeling when you weren't able to have that toy that your brother was playing with? Because it wasn't your turn to have it and he was playing with it at that moment. Which feeling was it that you felt? What sort of face do you think would show your face? And you can have mirrors as well and look at their faces in the mirror and really start to build that emotional literacy where they're able to articulate a little bit more how it is that they were feeling. And from that, they're going to feel really valued, really recognised. We can say things like, you looked really angry then, you looked really, really cross. What can I do to help you with that feeling? What can I do to help? And they're going to feel really valued. And it might be as simple as that there isn't a solution to that because it wasn't their turn and they're going to have to wait next time. And children don't find sharing easy, and it is something that they learn at a particular developmental point and not before then. It might just be that they just needed to recognise that they felt really angry or really disappointed, and that's okay to feel that way, but it's not okay to lash out and to hit. So we needed to just come and have a minute just to calm down. So I'm going to leave that there and you can sort of see as I talk how much it's settled by the end. Another way that we can support children with those tricky behaviours is a little bit of redirection. So I've sort of touched on it there with the hitting, but what we need to do is provide really firm boundaries for children because they feel really safe by knowing what's expected of them and knowing what's going to happen next. So in a sort of situation like a child lashing out and hitting, what can be really useful is just to say to them, I can't let you do that, or I won't let you do that. It's not okay to hit. Would you like to come with me and we can find something soft that you can use your hands on to get those feelings out? And maybe that's going and finding a pillow or a cushion that they can hit and they can punch and they can let all of that pent up energy out, but in a safe and controlled way, in a way that is appropriate. So they understand it's not okay to do that. I can help you find a way to let that feeling out in a way that is okay. We can also use things like homemade bean bags. So this one's just an old sock with some dried peas. I've tied a knot in the top. And this one's got some rice in there and I've put a little elastic on. Maybe your child looks like they're getting really frustrated, really angry about a situation. Invite them to come and let that energy out. I can see you're really struggling there. Why don't we get your beanbags and go outside and throw them at the wall? Why don't we go over there and throw them onto the carpet or throw them onto the sofa and let all of those feelings out, let that bad energy out of your body, and then we can calm down. So giving them that movement as regulation. A lot of children really find it useful to be able to move when they're feeling frustrated. So actually one of the worst things we can do is ask them to sit down and wait still, because they need to let all of that out. They need that movement to regulate. So we can give them something that can redirect that. We can also give them tools perhaps before they get to that boiling point. Let's go and move our bodies a little bit. Maybe you have a special song that you put on and you just move around for a minute or two just to let them get that energy out. Just a little hoop with some ribbons attached to, really lovely for them to waft and shake in a nice open space, or using a voile scarf. If you've got some bubbles, maybe blow some bubbles and get them to try and catch the bubbles with their ribbons and scarves. And it's just going to give them that chance to move in a positive way, to explore those feelings in a positive way, and to allow all of that pent-up energy out. And you'd be really surprised how useful that can actually be for dealing with some of those really challenging behaviours. So just catching it just at that point where they've still got a little bit of control of those emotions and redirecting it. Maybe it would be a time where you might typically give a child, you know, a time out to go and sit somewhere by themselves because they're not playing in an appropriate way, or their behaviour isn't acceptable in that moment. Giving them something to do in that time is going to be a really useful way of helping them to work through those emotions, to work through that space and work through that time. They thrive on boundaries. They thrive on know what's expected and know what will happen next, and we can model that for them. We can make sure that in their day they know what will happen if a certain behaviour that isn't acceptable is exhibited. We can just think quite creatively sometimes about what that consequence is, actually what is going to happen, what are we going to do to help them build that emotional literacy, to help them to understand those feelings and to help them express that in a healthy way that is appropriate. So hopefully you've got a few ideas there. You can see that the stars nearly come down just here. Have a go, make one up at home. You can make much smaller ones, so you've got something that you can take out and about with you. You can take this anywhere. You can stop anywhere and have a couple of minutes with your calm down bottle. So quite a useful thing. Just so you could be in the middle of a playground, the middle of a shopping centre, and you can get this out of your bag and they can have that little bit of time just to calm down. And you can have that little bit of time as an adult to calm down as well, because when we approach these tricky behaviours as the calming influence, that's going to be most supportive for everybody. If you'd like some more ideas for things that you can do to support your child's learning and development at home, then you can go to our website, which is www.familycorner.co.uk, or you can head across to the Early Years Alliance YouTube channel for more videos.